Yeah, good afternoon, dear students. Welcome to the session. Today we are having our session on audit documentation, a very important session, right? And today is the last day of our session wherein we have completed all the topics. And I hope you all have enjoyed and had a good learning experience for audit insights, right? So, not taking much of the time as due to technical glitch, we are already delayed. Not taking much of the time, we are having our learned faculty, CA Sumit Daddaji, with us. And over to you, Sumit sir, because it's very important and crucial topic, audit documentation, and which give really practical experience. So, not taking much of the time. Yeah.
Thank you, say Karuna ma'am, and good evening, fellow would-be future chartered accountants. So, dear students, I'm sure you all will agree the entire hard work you do, if that is not visible on paper, if that is not documented, there is a very famous saying in our profession that the work not documented means not done. I'm sure you all would have heard this from your principals, your seniors, whenever you would have done audit. So the proof of pudding is in the eating. Similarly, the proof of the audit is in the audit documentation. Now, can anybody of you tell me, first of all, why audit documentation is very important for auditors? Can anybody give your views why you think audit documentation is very important for auditors? It is in our profession why audit document is very important. Anybody, if you can put your response so the committee can see the response and they can let me know. And the best part is there is no wrong responses or no negative marking in the session. So whatever logical answer comes to your mind, tell me why do you think the audit documentation is very important to us? So one of the most important reason of audit documentation is so that I can, if I'm assigned any new audit as an intern, I can refer to the last year working paper and carry out the assignment without disturbing too much my principal. Now that's on a lighter note. And I'm sure you all will remember those who would have joined various audit firms and initially first, second day, your senior would have given you a job and say, do this audit. And you would have asked, and you're just new guy on the table, you don't know anything. And you would have asked, how will I do it? And he would have said, go back, see the last year working paper file and do accordingly. Does it actually happen with anyone of you? This actually happened with me and many of my other colleagues who have worked, and because we need to learn by seeing something which has been done in the past. Because audit is not a rocket science, it's not happening first time. So work paper will always let you know what has been done through it. Now that was for a lighter note to understand why audit document is relevant for us. But from an audit perspective, why audit document is mandatory? So if I see any annual report, the annual report will consist of, let's say, 100 pages of financial statements. It includes balance sheet, P&L, notes to accounts, statement of change in equity, cash flow, and various explanatory statements. This all is because of balance sheet and financial statement. This entire financial statement will be have a meaning only, it will be valid or relevant only when my audit report is there. If I give a clean audit report, the financials are worth it. If I give a disclaimer adverse, the financials are no use. It's a waste paper. So my audit report consists of generally 3 to 4 pages. Generally, among a financial of 100 pages, my audit report is 3 to 4 pages. This 3 to 4 pages give a comfort to the reader that something has been audited properly and the data presented is true and fair. It is not true and correct, it is true and fair. And the books are not misstated. There is no material misstatement in the books, and that gives a comfort. Now, how to justify that this has been actually done? And that will be resolved only by audit documentation. Now, this SA 230 gives a guidance what a valuer is, what an auditor is supposed to take care of. and how it should be followed, what it should be complied, certain do's and don'ts, which every audit firm need to keep in mind. And and in all regulatory reviews, your audit documentation is is your safeguard. So since I worked 10 years in India and 10 years in abroad earlier, and both sides in audit firms, I was told one thing that I was told one thing that audit documentation. Let me first start some slide just to see just a second. So the first thing which was told to us was audit documentation can be your very good friend and can be your worst enemy. Any idea why this statement was made? That audit documentations can be your very good friend and can be your worst enemies. Any thoughts anybody has on this significance of the statement? So this statement look like a contradictory itself. At one end, I'm saying it can be a very good friend. On the contrary, we are saying it could be worst enemy. Any thoughts anybody has on this? So I don't want to run PPT and just go line by line. So I'd like to know from
Sir,
you all. Please.
Sumit Jain is saying audit documentation is the proof of what work has been done by the auditor.
Okay. So that's why it becomes your good friend or it becomes your worst enemy. Good friend is if you have documented rightly, then in case of any litigation, in case of any regulatory review, in case of any challenges, you can always justify that I did the right thing. And even after that, some fraud happens, something goes bankrupt, a promoter does any wrongdoing, you can be safeguarded provided your documentation shows that what work you have done. In case your documents are loosely drafted or there is a lacuna in your document and it shows that oh there is a question of fraud which you did not which you overlooked, it can go against you. Suppose there is a bank balance and there is a reconciliation issue and you have not pointed it out, and documentation is addressed not addressed properly, it can always damage you. It can always damage. I'll explain in one line. I'll explain the importance of audit documentation. One of the biggest firms, one of the biggest, largest accounting firms, got got into liquidation, got into trouble only because of audit documentation issues. In US, audit is taken very seriously. In India, also audit is taken very seriously. But the regulators in US, PCOB, had one of the very strong arguments of any movement in audit documentation, any adjustment in audit documentation, any lacuna in audit documentation is a very, very serious risk. And that's why whenever someone doesn't work for US, they ensure that audit documentation is 100% perfect. Now, when we talk about audit documentation, what do we generally mean by audit documentation? Like what to be documented? Starting with what is the first what is the first document that starts in audit documentation? Any quick thoughts? If I want to start talking about audit documentation, what is the first document that should be documented by an auditor in his working paper files? What do you think should be the first few audit documents that everyone should have in their file? Any thoughts anybody has on this? What could be the first few documents that should be kept in audit documentation file? So I'm sure most of you would be having in your mind engagement letter. Having engagement letter is mandatory. It's non-negotiable. But before engagement letter, anything that comes before engagement letter, assuming it's your first year audit, if it would be your second year audit, or the client you're taken from somebody else, then it would be your non-objection certificate. No objection certificate would be your first documentations. Having NOC is mandatory. If you're taking an assignment from somebody else, which is another auditor, you need to, it's a professional courtesy, mandatory regulation in code of conduct. I need to ask him, can I accept this or document? If he has any concerns, he should let me know. Assuming it's a first audit we are doing, do I need to document somewhere that I did a customer KYC or I did a client risk assessment? Should I accept this client or should not I accept this client? That should be also a part of your working paper, that yes, we accepted this client by doing proper thorough check. So can I take somebody who is a drug dealer, money launderer? Maybe or may not be. I cannot take. If I take that client, that's the risk I will always carry of having questions in all regulations. That means I'm supporting something or doing wrong doing this. So I need to do a KYC assessment, that client risk assessment, and then I need to get a engagement letter mandatory. Now, the essence of audit documentation is it will give a comfort. It will represent what all work I have done. So this is a comprehensive records of auditor's work throughout the engagement. It captures the story from audit process to planning through completion. So it starts from what thought process went into starting an audit, what thought process went into selecting samples, what thought process went into asking certain queries, ignoring certain items. So let's say if I am having 100 line items in my trial balance, is it necessary that on 100 line items I will do certain audit work? Maybe, may not be. So it may happen certain items are too immaterial. I can ignore them and do not do any audit work on them. Then I can write in my audit work paper certain line items below $100 or below X number of rupees, I have ignored them. So this tells that, okay, what efforts a particular auditor has done. All audit procedures performed are documented. What relevant audit evidence obtained are mentioned in it, and what conclusions we arrived based on certain evidences that need to be put. When we say audit documentation, we either use the term working papers, work papers, that we use it. It serves as a foundation for auditors' accountability and quality assurance. Quality assurance is very, very key for bigger listed company clients, peer review clients. So the key purpose the audit document serves is it provides clear evidence of the auditor's basis for conclusion that audit objective and financial statement assertions have been properly checked, and auditor is is good enough to give a his auditor is sufficient enough to give an audit opinion. Whatever I I cannot say that my opinion is my opinion, my life, my style, my rules. That does not work in audit. Two auditors can have a different opinion, but then it has to be substantiated by standards. It cannot say I feel that way. My personal feeling has no relevance here. It is something which standards allow me. Based on that standard, I can always have a different opinion. I always argue on that. So if a standard provides me option A and B, and it says it is up to the assessee to choose option A or option B, you may choose option A and I can choose option B, yet both can be right at the same time. But so I need to have some flexibility and standards, but it cannot be my wish. So whenever I am giving any audit opinion, good, clean, modified, disclaimer, adverse, it is not my whimsy. It's not my, oh, client has given me high fees, let me give him clean opinion. That cannot work way. My audit documentation, my audit opinions are not relevant to the fees. So whatever I'm giving my audit opinion, if somebody questions me, if a shareholder questions me why you give me qualification, or if a bank questions or if a regulator questions why you have given him a clean report, I need to justify based on my documents. Now, when I do audit, I need to follow standards on auditing. This documentation will help me to ensure that I comply with the auditing standards. Now, remember, auditors have double role. The first role is accounting standards. Who's responsible to follow accounting standards? Auditor or the client? The prime responsibilities of the client to follow accounting standards. And it is the auditor's duty to ensure that the standards are followed in the proper accounting books. So, as a CA, as an auditor, I need to ensure that accounting standards are also followed. And then, most important, I need to ensure standards on auditing are also followed. Is client bothered about standards on auditing or is least bothered? What is your view? For the standards on auditing, is the client bothered or is not at all bothered? He is not at all bothered. He may be bothered on, he should be bothered on accounting standards. But when it comes on standards on auditing, he says it's not my job. It's a baby of the practicing CA who is auditing the firm. So to ensure that I comply with all the standards on auditing, this serves as a very important document. And for a quality assurance, it always helps you out. It helps in planning, performing, supervising, reviewing audit work effectively across the engagement team. So it helps the team at all. Now, practically, how does it help in some places? Does it ever happen with you? You join a firm and the firm has an existing client and you are sending now to audit that client. You go and ask a client, sir, I want to check this, that. Please explain me your accounting process. Please explain me your this process. Did it ever happen with any one of you? The client would have got irritated and say, how many times I'll explain this to your office? Every time someone new comes and they waste my time. Every time I come and explain this process. Does it happen with any one of you where you would have gone to a client, asked certain questions, and client says, every year I need to explain the same thing again and again to different team
Sir,
members?
Sir Sumit Jain is saying client doesn't bother about essays.
Absolutely right. Client will never bother about essays. And when you are going to a client who is a regular client of a firm, and see, will interns stay always in the firm? Probably no. Once they complete their 2 years audit period, they will move to different. Once they become CA, they may go to job, practice, business out of India for studies, business. It's their choice. So generally, in a 2 years, audit team will rotate generally. And when you go and ask a team a question, a client a question, his first irritation would be every time I need to explain again and again the entire process, you waste my time. Now, this could be sorted if somebody would have done a proper audit documentation. If you made an audit documentation, you save you save properly in your file what is the business workflow, what is the certain policies, what is certain processes, each item, so that whenever someone joins next year, he can just roll forward the file, look back into the last year's working papers, understand the business of the client, and once he moves to the client, then he can get a very clear idea. So you got some knowledge in your back mind, and when you go and meet client, you will ask more relevant questions. Now, how should you maintain audit file? Either I can maintain in a physical copy or I can maintain in a electronic documentation file. Both options are available in standards. SA 230 is very flexible. Intent is when we need to review, I could get those documents, those files in my custody so that I can review it back. Whether you want to maintain physical file or in electronic format, they're all comfortable with that. Now, who's the owner of these audit documents? Who has the right on these audit documents? The right of the audit document is of the right of the audit document is of the right of the document is of, it is always of the auditor. So auditor will always be the owner of the working papers. The client, the client can never say it is my, you are doing my audit, so whatever documentation you are doing belongs to me. That logic cannot sustain. It will be always with the, it will be always with the, it will be always with the, with the right of the auditor to share with the client or not. But if the auditor does not want to share, ownership will always with the auditor. Now, certain places, so I'll give you just practical reasons where audit documentation become very, very critical. So we all know if I do not follow audit documentation, what issues can happen to us. As an audit firm, as an auditor, I can always be questioned by disciplinary committee, I question the regulators, and a panel action can be taken against us. So in IBC, so you all would have heard the term insolvency and bankruptcy code. In IBC, insolvency and bankruptcy code, a company goes into financial stress. So their business gets stopped. Many employees leave the organization, and then it is taken over by another gentleman who, or a person who, male or female IP, they takes over the entity, and then entire accounting documents are moved away from the office because the crook promoter does not want the incoming IP should know the history of the accounts. Then the IP sends a letter to auditors. Since you audited our last years, I need details of such and such other accounts. If the auditor has not maintained audit documentation properly, and if he is unable to provide those information, what do you think? What will happen? The insolvency professional will file an application to ICI and NCLT that he is the auditor who is not sharing his audit documents to me because I want to see those documents because I'm taking over the charge of this company. Their auditor cannot say, I will not show you. They, you cannot depart. It's your right not to depart, but you need to show to the auditor, show to the IP or the person who is of the company that when you audited, what information you got from the company. Otherwise, how you would have documented anything. So audit documentation becomes very critical in terms of issues. Whenever a litigation happens, the first thing they ask is the auditor. And if the auditor is not maintained, a very serious repercussion happens on audit documentation. Now, any idea for how long I should maintain an audit documentation? So let's say I'm auditing 31st March 2026 audit. How long should I maintain its audit documentation? Retention period of audit documentation is for how long? Any idea? How long I should maintain audit documentation? Any quick thoughts? How many years I am supposed to maintain audit documentation? There are my two questions to you. First, as per SA 230 or as per SQC1, Standard on Quality Control, I need to maintain my audit documentation for how much period? That's first.
So
Second,
7 years by Sumit Jain.
7 years. So very right answer, Sumit. Absolutely correct answer. Earlier it was 10 years. Earlier the rule used to talk about 10 years. Now it is 7 years. Now the second question in link to this is why I need to maintain 7 years? Relevance of 7 years. देखो शादी के 7 फेरे होते हैं, हफ्ते में 7 दिन होते हैं, 7 जन्म का बंधन होता है, 7, so many things with 7. What is this? What is the love of the 7 number that the 7 number has been given in the standard? When the standard makers were making this 7 years requirement, any thoughts why they would have? What could be the rationale behind this 7 years? And remember, whenever any standard setters give certain numbers, so and whenever they put some logic, some rules to be followed, there is a thought process behind it. The committee thinks on it, discuss on it, and there has to be some rational why I'm saying X or Y. So when somebody is saying that, okay, earlier it was 10 years, now they got it changed to 7 years. What is the logic of 7 years? Any thoughts? What is the logic of 7 years? What's the correlation? And the correlation is generally when did, and see, remember, these documentations are not only for India. The global audit committee across the globe have own standards. This SQC is globally for everywhere. They call it IQSM1. Now, in such standards, thought process happens. So one of the thought process is, when does the audit partner rotation happens? So it is generally after 7 years. So if I am a firm of a 10 partner firm and we got assignment of 10 years, one CA will be generally asked to remove after 7 years. If I'm an audit partner of a client, after 7 years, as per my firm policies, they will say you rotate the partner because you have been in the audit for so long. You might miss certain things. You might develop a relationship with the client. You might take client lightly. So a new blood should come, a new person should come, a new pair of eyes should come on the set independently. They might have a different perspective. So 7 years comes from that. That 7 years rotation should be there. So the record should be maintained for 7 years. Now, when we say 7 years, so 7 years starts from when? So 31st March 2026. Shall I add 7 years from 31st March 2026? Or the 7 years starts from the date of my audit report? What do you think? What is your view on this? The 7 years starts from when? 31st March 2026, or it will start from the date of my audit report completion. So this 7 years starts from the date of your audit report, not from the year-end date. It is the date when I will issue report. So let's say if I issue report on 30th June 2026, then my 7 years starts from 30th June 2026. Retention, as we discussed, retention can happen in any form, physical or electronic. It can always happen. As per your choice, you can maintain both depending on your capacity, size, which is comfortable. These days, it is more preferred in electronic these days. But if you want to maintain both, it's your choice. Quality control happens. One of the another reason of audit documentation is one of the other reason audit documentation is. So, and I'll give you my example. So, when I was in with various firms in India and abroad. So normally, if I'm an intern, if I'm an article, or if I'm an audit senior or audit manager or audit director, whatever, ultimately, who is signing the report? I or the partner? The partner is signing the report. So if partner is signing the report, can I go a little bit careless? That, oh, I'm not signing, so what my other one is signing, so I may not be that serious. So in our firm, where we did audit significantly, they used to get the signature done from every audit team member on the respective work papers. So let's say when we are making a work paper, it used to be signed by respective work papers, respective person. Whether you are a 1 day intern, 1 year intern, any staff who has worked on the engagement, they need to sign that I have thoroughly reviewed my work areas of working papers. And trust me, so when I was an intern and when I was supposed to do this, the moment I used to sign on the work papers, a sense of responsibility used to come in. That when I am signing something that yes, I did it, we cannot take it casually. If I may, if I would not have signed, I may take things casually because okay, ultimately what's happened? Sign, I'm not have done. But the moment you sign, even on an internal work paper, though the actual sign will be only by the CEO who is actually signing the report. But when you document and your audit work paper and you sign that yes, I've actually done reviewed these steps audit procedures as mentioned, what I'm claiming, it puts a lot of responsibility on the head of the person signing. And that's why this audit documentation brings discipline to you. It did quality controls. Now, when we say one size fits all, one size do not fit all. If I am auditing any listed company, let's say Tata's, Birla's, Adani's, Ambani's, Goenka's, any listed companies, and I'm auditing a sole proprietorship firm or a small partnership firm or a small private company, MSME company, less than 1 lakh capital. Can I expect the same quantum of documentation in both? Answer would be no. There would not be any sense to have. So you cannot have just one standard and say I'll apply blindly to all audits. That cannot happen. Though the documentation will happen, but the nature, time, and extent of audit procedures will change. And based on the nature of extent of audit procedures reviewed, the kind of work papers you need to document will also change. Who is reviewing the work paper? Who is the maker? Who is the checker? What detailed analysis have you done? Have you done the audit completion and conclusion? All this conclusion have been timely checked. That needs to be taken care by the standards. You need to see the nature of the audit, and based on the nature of audit documentations, you need to document them thoroughly. This document should be sufficiently detailed. Now, understand the key context of the documentation. Which are the best organizations are those who are driven by people or those who are driven by process? What do you think? If I want to make a great organization, it should depend on people or it should depend on process? It should be people oriented or process oriented. It should be process oriented always, because people can always have different views because we are all are different. My thought process, your thought process may be different. I would like to work in the night and you would like to work in the day. Both would like to work, but the choice is different. But if I have an organization whose process says the work timing will be 10 to 6, so whether I like or you don't like, we all have to come in 10 to 6. Now, audit documentation is, will I always say, if I did an audit documentation today and 2 years later you ask me, Sumit, how you did that audit? Will I say, oh, I might have missed something, or I might have goofed up, or I will always say I would have done best? Even after 2 years, if you ask me a question, I will always say, oh, I did the audit job great. I did everything supposed to be done. So I will always have a biasness towards my own work. I will not accept any lacuna in my work. Even though I would not have done it properly, I will always present my best foot forward to you and say I did good thing. So the audit documentation comes as a concept which says that when a independent experienced auditor comes who has knowledge of audit, who knows audit subject, and he has no prior connection to the engagement, who is not related at all to the engagement. He is just independent CA who understand the concept of audit very well. He comes and sits on the board and he reviews the audit papers. So whatever audit work you have done, if he reviews your audit work paper, and then he can tell whether you have done right or you have not done right. That part could be always told by the audit person. And that is the reason why your audit documentation should be sufficient enough that when a man of common prudence, when a man of common intelligence who knows the topic very well, he picks up your work paper, he don't need to ask anyone. Should not be going to ask anyone, what have you done? Your audit documentation should be like the road sign maps. If I need to go from Jaipur to Delhi, let's say by road, there would be road signs which says, okay, take left, go right, this is Delhi is this way, that way. There will be cleaner signages. By maneuvering those signages, I can easily reach to Delhi. Similarly, if somebody wants to know what I have actually done in my audit, by reading my audit work papers, reading my brief audit risks, audit plan, audit strategy, audit planning, he can come out what I would have actually thought of and what work has been done. He can correlate both this and can determine whether the evidences which I have obtained are sufficient and appropriate audit evidence to give a clean opinion. So it is always important to have proper working paper. Independently, somebody can look into. You need to document key findings and decisions. I need to identify specific characteristics of items and matters tested, including sampling methods and criteria used. So whatever sampling I am choosing, so there are two kind of samplings. One is manual sampling where you select certain samples based on your understanding. Other could be a system-based sampling, statistical sampling where you don't apply your personal biasness, where the system automatically picks certain samples which you need to get it checked. So if I'm having a sampling done by certain methodology, that will be documented that how I validated this item against what context. Now, whatever results and evidences that I've been taking out, whatever conclusions I'm giving. So if I'm doing audit evidence of valuations, if I'm clarifying the assertion of valuations, then I need to ensure that the valuations, how I performed should be noted in the file, whether we have taken from a listed stock exchange or relied from another independent values report. This should be documented properly so we can say, oh, we verified the assertion of valuations thoroughly. In terms of completeness, if I have investments in my books and I need to ensure that investments have been completely recorded in the books, then I will ensure that documentation from the the system report of any securitization company is be there, that all demat statement is there, and from the demat we have documented and ensure that all investments coming in demat are in books. So that kind of whatever evidences you can put in should be there in documentation. Wherever there are significant matters, then we need to have a detailed documentation. For example, there is a content liability going on the company, and this content liability is very, very significant. And it is so significant that if it does not, if it is, if it evolves on the company may have a going concern issue if it is of that level. Now, when you have such a big significant content liability, how will you address that? Can you ignore that? Or in your working paper, how will you address that? Any idea? Anyone has any idea on this point that we have a how will you do that? That we have a significant content liability. In a significant content liability, if in a significant content liability, how will you document in your working papers to safeguard yourselves? Because the liabilities, this content liability, the case of the company is so critical that if it goes in against the company, the going concern issue may arise. Then how will you do that? Let's say, for example, let's say, for example, you are auditing a movie company and the company is making a movie in between. And in between, someone put a claim against that company that this movie is based on my storylines. It's a pirated story. They have stolen my story, and he expects the court to put a stop and put a question mark that you will not be able to share this work on this further or share the story further. Now, in that scenario, it's a significant content event. How will you address that in audit? Anybody has any views on this? How will you document this in your work paper? Any idea how you are going to document this in a work paper? Any thoughts on this? How can I document this on my work paper?
So one of the student is writing, we have checked probability of materializing that contingent liability.
So the question is, how will you document it? So what we need to do it. If I ask a client whether this case will fall on you, he will always say, no, no, we are going to win. So the client will always be optimistic, and client will always ignore it. But then I need to inquire with the lawyer team. So I'll send a letter to the lawyer and say, please confirm the status of the case and let me know the probability of the current liability delving in the next 12 months. So the lawyer can give a fact that, okay, yes, there is a case on this company and we believe we may not get this much of liability. I may get some part assets, or we may not get full amount. Some amount can happen. So whatever the lawyer is saying, that kind of documentation should come. So it will say that, okay, it was a significant matter. You discuss it. You discuss with the management. You discuss with the lawyer, who are the best possible person to discuss. You have discussed enough, and then you are taking it through. So I need to document substantive discussions on significant matters, including alternative viewpoints and conclusion reached. So I said including alternative viewpoints would be, let's say, I believe that the company has lost a case in district court. Now they are applying and going to the high court. Now, can we ignore this? We can't ignore this because they have already lost in a court. So we can make certain provisions based on certain understanding and document itself. Client can always have a different viewpoints, but I need to ensure my viewpoint is considered. Now, whenever I need to document, I need to ensure that all documents required by standards are copied, they are fulfilled. If we are not following certain standards for some reason, for any reason, if you're not following any standards, if you're departing with those standards, I need to mention that why I'm departing with those standards and the justification. There could be certain logics where some things have not been followed by the company, and there could be a strong logic which you need to mention it. Alternative procedures, say for example, I have 100 debtors, and the 100 debtors we send. Okay, if I'm doing an audit of a company and there are 100 trade receivables, is it expected me that I should send balance confirmation to all 100 receivables? Yes, no, maybe. What's your view? I have 100 debtors. Is it mandatory that I need to send balance confirmation to all 100 debtors? Yes, no, maybe. What's your view? Any view anybody has on this? I have 100 debtors with me. All total population size is 100. Is it necessary for me to send balance confirmation to all 100? Yes, no, maybe. Legally. Does statute expects me to send all? What's your view? So statutes have given a guidance, standards have given a guidance. If time and cost effort is too significant and it may not serve the purpose, or if we can get the purpose served by any other alternate procedures, we can take it. So let's say out of 100, 10 are very key crucial. The 10 debtors consist the balance of 70% debtors. So I may send letter to 10% debtors, those 10 debtors. Now for the remaining debtors, I can either go for alternative procedures called, I can go for checking the subsequent recovery. So based on 31st March or 31st December financials, I'll go to the next post that year and say, okay, show me whatever is outstanding received by the bank in which period, what time. So based on those subsequent recovery, I'll get a confirmation that client is not going to default. You will be getting the amount specifically. So that part need to keep in mind. Wherever there are inconsistency you have observed that need to be identified, analyzed, and resolved. It may happen that when you document something, when you review something, you may find errors. So it may happen, for example, actuary report needs to be prepared. Okay. Now, in preparing the actuary report, actuarial valuer has given you a report. Now you took the report and you review the report. When you review the report, you find there are certain inconsistency or factual accuracy as compared to the data shared by the actuary. Now you will check the data, you will check the report given by actuary, you will cross verify with the status, with the report prepared, with the data you have, and whatever the differences are coming, you try to reconcile. If you reconcile, then you mention that this was inconsistency, this was an error, and we addressed it and we solved the error to clarify. There cannot be anything pending remain in the work paper where you are not clear on how to address the issue. Now, how to ensure that? So first of all, within how many period I should complete my audit documentation from the date of signing? Any quick thoughts? From the date of signing, within how many days I should complete my audit documentation? So I completed the audit now. I signed the report. After signing the report, within how many days I should complete my audit documentation? Any thoughts? Any idea? So the filing period, the at last deadline given to me is 60 days. From the audit closure, issue of report, my administrative work paper filing can happen for 60 days, not beyond that. The 60 days is given because as per standard quality control, we have given this guidance. Now, in this, can a new document should be addressed? So there are certain points which you need to understood because ideally my conclusion should not be changed ideally. Once I sign the audit report, given a report to you, and then a new facts come, I cannot document that in newspaper until unless they are a different number. So post assessment modifications, we need to ensure that if there's a documentation of changes, audit file has been assembled, auditor must specify the reason for making the modifications. Normal modifications are permitted. Normal modifications are like, for example, I got some bank confirmations on email. So I attach that email format. Then I got a hard copy in my office. Then I can attach hard copy. So I can adjust that. So whenever you are making any changes, it should be known, it should be aware in the knowledge of the partner. Retention requirement based on certain jurisdictions. As per standard, it is 7 years. But if tomorrow any standard says more than 7 years, 10 years, that we need to follow. Anything stricter this in this department, in this compliance, need to be followed. Anything lighter than this is not required to be followed. This SA 230 will give the accountability. This puts auditor responsible and ensure that he takes his accountability and ensure that this gives a clear evidence of his professional judgment in decision making. When we give an audit documentation, correct SA 230 ensures that whatever he has thought of his professional judgment and decision making is recorded there, and person coming in can take charge independently and give his own views. Transparency, it ensures that audit process is documented properly, everything is transparent, and we are not fudging anything or not passing any data or passing any benefit to somebody else. Quality is mandatory. Now, when should the audit documentation should start, or when it should be maintained? The day we close our audit, at the time we start making documentation, or when it should be done? Any quick thoughts? When the audit documentation should be done? It should be done. It should be done on a simultaneous basis, on a as and when we are doing audit, same time document should be captured. Because once you complete the audit, then start documenting, you may fail to document certain important points. So it should be a continuous process. It should be a regular process that as and when audit starting, all processes are documented in its respective file. Now let me take you to SA 230, just a second. Now, so standard on quality control SQC1. This is important for all firms that perform audit or review historical financial information and other accounting and related service engagement. What does this standard says for? Why? What is the benefit of this standard? It applies on all accounting, all audits. When we go to SA 230, if we go in SA 230 and talk on SA 230, the first thing SA 230 will say, okay, we have SA 230 audit documentation. It should start from April 2009. This SA 230 gives you a scope and it explains your entire SA 230. But what does this preface says? SA 230 audit documentation should be read in connection of preface of the standard on quality, auditing and review, which sets out review of essays and SA 200. Overall objective of independent audit and conduct of audit in accordance. So I need to review this and to understand what this expects me in documentation. So this standard says about that I need to have a quality control, and quality control will happen when we document something. Now, when we say document, it has to be a written document. Verbal, oral documents will not serve any purpose. It may not be any logical reason to have verbal documents as a documented in your report. It will not serve any purpose. So it is always have a thorough documents. So this standard will say that okay, how many period you need to keep retention. So it mentions everything that why we so say for example the point we discuss of partner rotation, that it comes that familiarity threat comes. Familiarity threat comes when uh, partners remain the same for a for a the same partners remains for a continuous period. And that's why they say for audits, engagement partner should be rotated after a defined period, normally not more than 7 years. So 7 is considered the upper max years. Many big firms globally have a rule that after 5 years they will retire. They will shift the audit partner from that audit from the from 5 to 7 years, it is the choice of the company to keep. There is no standard which prohibits for 7 years or 5 years. It is up to them what period they want to show. But it's always advisable to have a different partner after 7 years mandatory. And retention period is 7 years because this policy comes here. Earlier, this was 10 years. So as I mentioned, here it is showing 7 years retention period, retention document of engagement. Every firm should read this at least once in a detail. And then, so here it was 10 years earlier. Obviously, earlier it was 10 years. Now it is made to 7 years. Now this documentation will just go through the SA 230 and talk about. So what is expected from the documentation? Documentation that meets the requirement of SA should provide. So what it is expecting you to give? Evidence of auditor's basis of conclusion about achieving the objectives of the audit. So I need to have a conclusion on SA 230 on documentation. And this is the most important. Evidence that audit was planned and performed in accordance with the standards on auditing and applicable legal and regulatory framework. So it ensures that you have followed the standards on auditing and all the respective legal and regulatory framework. I can only ensure that this was evidence when something is written in paper somewhere, or I would have documented somewhere that okay, we discussed with client. I asked client, do he has any non-compliances? He said no non-compliance. So I'm going to buy that. But when I'm going to audit and I could see certain non-compliances, bigger non-compliances, I will always touch base on that. So the documentation should always kept ensure two purpose. It should tell what is the basis of its conclusion, and it should tell how it was performed. Now, this document will help me to ensure how much team required, team did what, enabling the team engagement, team to be accountable for work. All this have to be factored in. This applies on all audits of financial statements from 1st April 2009, post that onwards. The objective of the audit documentation is, that's a key objective, a sufficient and appropriate record for the basis of auditor's report. So we should get a sufficient and appropriate record that whatever auditors have taken certain privileges that have been factored in. Evidence that audit was planned and performed in accordance with SA. Now this is very important to understand. If one of the accounting standards says, auditing standard says, check materiality. If you are doing materiality, how will you ensure that materiality is taken care of? When I'm doing materiality, then it needs to be documented somewhere. That what is the materiality? If you have not documented, have I taken materiality on the basis of net assets basis, or I've taken materiality on the basis of revenue or net profit? If I have not documented all this, then it does not uh, make sense. Then the people will not believe that I have a appropriate evidence that all other essays have been complied with. Now, when we say audit document, it means the record of procedures performed and relevant for each audit, conclusion of the auditor. We use working papers, audit working papers, work papers are the same synonyms. Audit file means the data in which how the data is stored. It could be a physical file, it could be online file, anything that makes sense. Experienced auditor means someone who is independent from the audit process, and when he joins to audit, he can see the audit by reviewing the audit process, essays, and have business understanding and find out. Timely preparation of audit documentation. So document should be prepared on a timely basis. It is on a regular basis. consistent basis, so that if your team member is absent next day, someone joining in the team in between can see the team, can see the documentation and check till what we have worked upon. So that is very, very relevant. I'll tell you a practical, just a second. I'll tell you a practical story. I was in Middle East and I was with KPMG Bahrain, and in one of our clients, uh, dispute happened between shareholders in one of our big clients. So they appointed one of the Indian firms, one of the India-based firms, to come in Bahrain and do the review. It was one of the large firms. 60 days the assignment went on. 40, 45 to 50 days, the junior team, the young team members were working on that engagement. And the senior partner was in India. And at the 46th day, the senior partner moved to Bahrain. He came to Bahrain to meet the management. And when he met the management tried to give him a overview that whatever happened till now. So management was trying to tell that, look, we have given this data till now. And the partner said, I know you have given this, and this is pending that. He had entire knowledge of the assignment. And the audit and the management was so confused. He said, for a 45 days, we are sitting with your team. You never came to your team. You never asked a question to your team in our front. How come you are updated with the entire process? How come you know which all documents we have given, we have not given? And then the audit team partner mentioned, we have a thorough documentation system where every day end, when team leaves the office, they document whatever they did today, what documents were asked and what is pending. Entire status, entire status is being checked by the is maintained on the Teams. So they used to follow Microsoft Teams. So this on the Teams, entire day-to-day summary is mentioned. So every day in the night, I used to read that and update it. And that's the power of audit documentation. So they know everything what was happening. And this, based on this skill, they were retained for many other assignments, because they say when somebody can document things so properly, it will be always methodological and work properly. So always do on a timely basis. Don't think that once I finish my audit, then I will do documentation. That may not work out. Now, as I mentioned, you need to follow all audit procedures and audit evidences obtained. So as I said, there is no parameter that for all audits we should have same standard of documentation, same size, same efforts. Depending on the complexity of the nature of the engagement, depending on the riskiness of the audit, depending on the nature of client, listed, unlisted, NPA client, loan taken client, public money, private money, we need to document. And the document should be in a such a way that an expert or experienced auditor, having no previous connection with that audit, is independent for that audit. If he comes and do the audit, he can check whether you have done thoroughly procedures. He could figure it out. So I'll quickly rush these points. You'll know. So that should be sufficient enough. Now, what is relevant? That specific items you have mentioned. It is very important to write who performed the audit work and on what date this work was completed. So writing the name of the team member and the date they've done is sign off is very, very mandatory. If we have not done that, then it will not be able to prove that it was done timely. So it cannot happen that I am not writing the dates that way. So it needs to be taken care of. Okay. Now, so the person who did the audit work is also important to write, and person who reviewed the audit work and on what date he reviewed the audit work is right. So just my one question to all the young team members. Suppose you are an intern and you made 10 work papers, and your audit manager has reviewed those 10 work papers. Is it mandatory for the audit partner to review all 10 work papers and sign off on all 10 work papers? Yes, no, maybe. What's your view? Any quick thoughts on this? Any quick thoughts on this?
So you can continue. I'll let you know if anything comes up.
Sure. Sure. So the standards do not expect the partner to review all work papers.
So
If
one of the students is saying it's mandatory.
it is not mandatory. If I'm an audit partner and I have an audit manager and I have an audit intern or audit assistant, the work is done by audit assistant or intern, and then those work is reviewed by audit partner, audit manager. Now, depending on the nature of importance of key audit areas, the audit partner will review the key audit areas. Audit partner is not expected to review all work papers. Now imagine take an example of an auditor of Tatas or Birlas or Adanis who have 500 plus consolidations. If let's say if Tata Group has 500 related party subsidiaries, investments in associates, joint ventures, and if they need to do a consolidation for all those 500 plus items, the partner is not going to check each line item, right? The partner will see the critical, key, important things. So the expectation is if if the audit partner got a comfort on key items and the manager has reviewed all the work, then he can write that I audited this pages. And that's why you see what they are saying. So let's say if you see this para 9, it is saying how much work you have done, who performed the audit work, and what you've done. It is saying who reviewed the audit work performed and the extent of such review. Are you doing a full blown review? Are you doing an inquiry? Are you doing a thorough reassessment, recomputation? So all these need to keep in mind. Whatever discussions you have with management, those are with governance need to be documented mandatory. This is very important. If the audit committee is saying something, you to take care of it. It has to be documented in the work paper mandatory. Similarly, when you go to the board of directors, they have to always mention that. If there is any inconsistency document, that will be always challenged. And I'll give you my personal example. So I was part of one of the big six firms, as I mentioned, in KPMG Bahrain. So there we had a rule, and the rule was every year, every year, another person from any office in the world will come and review one of our files. And when he comes and review our files, he act like a total stranger. Even he's coming from, let's say, India office or let's say London office, he will treat me like an independent client, review my file thoroughly like a thorough standards. And if something is not followed, he will give a very, very tough report that, they have not maintained the quality, consistency they should have expected from the auditing standards. So documentation becomes very relevant and I need to document everything. And they will always ask, okay, tell me what is the discussion happened with audit committee and board and where it is documented. I cannot say, oh, there is no discussion happened with the audit committee. That looks illogical because I go and present the audit committee report. So we need to go and present the report and ensure what has been documented there. If we departing from any relevant requirement, that need to be shown separately. Now, this is very, very difficult and very difficult to understand. Matters arising after the date of auditor's report. If we perform new or audit procedures conclusion after the date of auditor's report, how shall we document? let's say there is a content liability till the balance sheet date 31st March 26 and till your audit signing date 30th April 2026. It's a content liability. Now you issued a report on 30th April 2026, and on 2nd May you see the Supreme Court passed an order, and they passed an order that the case is against your company. So it is not an adjusting event because you have already issued the report. Report has gone. Till the time of audit completion, there is no such view which could have taken. But when you need to document, you will update the working papers and put that, okay, new evidence have come because of circumstance encountered. But you don't need to make any changes. Assembly of the audit file, as I mentioned, for administrative process, I can add the documentations within 60 days. But it should be logged. It should not be allowed to add a new item or a delete of new item later on. You cannot discard after 60 days because once the 6 7 years. So this is very important. The auditor shall not delete or discard audit documentation of any nature before the end of retention period. Anybody know any audit firm which have been closed due to this discarding or deleting the audit documentation? Anybody aware anywhere in the world, one of the audit firm would have been discarded the audit documentation and they burned the working papers when a review was happening due to a regulatory issue, and then the entire firm across the globe was shut down. So those of you who are not aware, go and research the case of Enron case in the Google. It would be a good case to understand as a profession how non-compliance of one standard in one remote location of the world put a damage on the entire audit firm across the globe. This audit firm had the offices across the globe, not only at one place, across the globe. Just one damage, one non-compliance of this standard, and you could see the damage. Now you're getting an idea how significant this standard is, how important this standard is. So documentation should be taken so for an auditor, after the audit documentation is his best friend or the worst enemy. So that you need to keep in mind. So I'll skip other parts. So I'll quickly take some parts for you to understand. When we talk of documentation, what is expected? It is expected that I document audit programs. Audit programs means how I wish to validate cash and bank balance, how I wish to validate debtors, how I wish to validate each line item of my balance sheet that need to be validated, how we did analysis, did we issue any issues memorandum to the client. So let's say wherever there are significant issues, we send a letter to the client that these are our issues. So summary log, do you have an audit summary log, which should always have, so that you can always demonstrate to the peer reviewer or somebody reviewing the file that during the audit, I asked 10 queries and the client responded with those queries and we closed the matter. Whether you have taken letter of confirmation representation, that should be taken care. Any checklist you follow, that checklist filing up should be there. Like, for example, independence declaration. So this is something which a lot of people miss generally. Do I need to, let's say I have 10 members in my audit team. Is it a duty of an audit partner to ensure that all 10 members of the team are independent? How do I come to know that somebody's father is not working as a CFO of that company if the person does not tell me? Or his brother relative is not working in that company if he does not tell me? So we always take a independence declaration from the audit team member. That should be a part of your audit documentation. If you don't have this in your file, it is considered that you have not ensured that the team is independent. And in the audit, if the team is not independent, your entire work becomes meaningless. Now, this I'm sure you all understand. You don't need to explain. Oral explanation does not make sense. As I mentioned, work not documented means work not done. Even though the client would have committed everything to you in orally, but if you have not documented it, then does not make sense. So it has always has to be documented, because later on you cannot come and prove that, oh, client told me like this. If something is not documented, you have not taken in writing from client or in MRL, it will not help you at all. I'll explain more in guidance. Please give a minute. Now, for a smaller entities, when we are doing for a smaller entities, documentation can be less extensive. Now, it does not. So for a bigger engagement team where I need to have engagement quality control reviewer, EQCR, it will be different. But for a smaller engagement team, the documentation size can be different. In fact, I can have only one paper where I can put everything for a smaller engagement team. But for a bigger engagements, I need to have a separate working papers. Assembly of file we discussed, it should not take more than 60 days. So all administrative amendments should be done within 60 days of the file. So 7 years is generally is the standard, 7 years. Some people follow 10 years. It depends on your firm policy. If your firm policy wants 10 years, you will follow 10 years. But standard is generally 7 years. Ownership we just talked about. Ownership is always in the hands of auditor. Auditor is always the right owner. He may at his discretion make documents available to clients, provide such disclosures, do not undermine the work performed, and it is always his choice. Okay. One of the most practical reason you need to keep in mind, where you will always get a request to share your working papers or guide from your working paper is, let's say you are last year's auditor of March 25 and you resigned from March 25 and I am taking from March 26. When I'm doing March 26, the opening balance was signed by you. Now I need to take charge of that opening balance. Now to take charge of that opening balance, I will ask from the client. Suppose client entire team has changed and client has no idea of certain data. If the client has no idea of certain data, can I request the previous auditor, please run me through how did we arrive this document, or what is the breakup of these details? Can I go or I cannot go? Let's say there is one amount coming other current assets, and in the other current asset, $1 million is pending there, or 10 crore rupees is pending there. Breakup is not available with the client because either the records got burn out, anything happened, accountant changed, system crashed. So the client do not have this data breakup of 1 crore. Can I ask the previous auditor, can you please run through what is the breakup of this from based on your working paper? Yes, no, maybe. Can we ask or we cannot ask? So we can always ask. As an incoming auditor, you can always ask the outgoing auditor, please explain what is the basis. I cannot say, tell him, how did you check this? How did you audit
Uh,
this? That I yeah.
Sumit ji, we have received query from Anil that what
Hmm.
are the consequences if the audit documents are discarded before the reporting? And what if the auditor has failed to grab certain key information to be documented from the management?
Correct. So Anil, I'll answer this very shortly when I take certain case laws. So first thing is when you say audit is discarded, so discarded means what happens? I documented something and now factually it is incorrect. Maybe I have a wrong understanding, or earlier the management explained me wrong thing, so I documented wrong document, and now I got a clear understanding, so I taken a new document, correct document. So I can discard old documents. So wherever there are redundancy in documents, I can discard those. That is fine. But the case of Enron was what happened? when there are certain fraudulent activities are supposed to be done by the client, so the auditors deleted those, they burned those working papers. And when they burn those working papers during the review, it is considered as significant non-compliance with the law. And that is a criminal offense because you are supposed to maintain record for 7 years. And I came to you see the record, you're burning it down. And because there is a fraudulent activity going on. So then there is serious repercussion. In case of, and I'll tell you, I'll give you practical views what happens. In many of the insolvency bankruptcy cases, where the IP asks certain documents from the management and management is not able to give, then he asks those critical documents with the client, with the auditors. If the auditor do not show those documents or give these documents to him, then he files a complaint against the ICA disciplinary committee that the auditor has not kept the important documents with him, so the audit is not done properly. So certain key documents have to be filed. Is it necessary to have every document in your working paper file? Not necessary. I'll give you an example. I cannot name a bank where I audited. There is one of the banks in India, which is a foreign bank in India. You will be surprised. They do not give any salary details to us, and yet we need to audit salary. Salary is a big component in banks. It's a private bank. They were not telling the salary names. Only you'll be surprised. They allow only either our audit director or audit partner to review the salary list. And to review the salary list, the audit partner or audit director had to travel to the London. London was a shared service hub where all salaries of entire world respective branches of that bank were kept there. So it's a very funny story that, and because I audited that bank, so I can always say that. So when we used to audit and we used to always say to our partner that can you take us as your assistant in going there, because we'll also go and see London, because when you are young intern and if given a chance to go to London, you will love to that. But the client was so sticky and client said only partner can go and he will only have access. And second, he will not allow to take pictures of that salary sheet. They will say you can go there, you can say, okay, I reviewed, I saw the document, I see the salary, I see the numbers, name and amount, I validate the total, I see the bank statement, made payment of total salary. So he would do all things required. But today, if I say, give me in my work paper, he will not give. And the reason why they were not giving, they say, in any organization, salaries are very, very confidential. Tomorrow, if Mr. A comes to know that B is paid X amount, C is paid Y amount, and D is paid Z amount, and then all three will start fighting that, oh, I spent this much hours, I did more work, you're giving me less salary. And that's why many organizations have a lot of strict rules on salary discussion and salary disclosures. So you are an auditor, but I will not have a documentation of salary names in my file. So what we will do is we will document that since of confidentiality clause, client is not sharing the salary details for our records, though our partner has went, see the salary register on it himself, noted the salary, verified the salary, mentioned in the register is reconciling with the bank, and that way they have done accordingly. So this they will document and mention. Now let me take to the quickly on guidance note, and before the guidance note, I will take you to the, after that I'll take you to the compliances issues. What are the issues of compliances? Now, so this is a guidance note issued by ICAI for all practicing professionals that when you need to ensure how SA 230 should be ensured. Okay. Now, just a second. Now, just read this and see how the relevance of this. The relevance is SA 230 talks of audit documentation, that is SA 230. But there are many other standards of auditing, many that insist that how certain things should be documented. So SA 230 is an overall set. Remaining all are subsets. So SA 230 supersedes every documentation standard. Other standards which are specific to audit, let's say quality control, SA 220, let's say 260, 265, discussion with those charged with governance and all, they give certain requirements and that need to be followed. So let me run quickly on those standards, and these are a whole list of standards which need to be followed. So first I need to ensure that quality control for an audit of financial statements SA 220 ensures. This SA 220 ensures that the auditor has complied with relevant ethical and independence requirement. Acceptance and continuous client relationship and engagements. Remember, I told you that we need to sign independence of team member. So auditor will say, I have taken so he will document in his file, I have taken an independence check from all team member. Nobody has mentioned that he is not independent. So my team is compliance. Acceptance and continuous, as I mentioned, it is mandatory for an auditor to review that should I want to keep the client or exit the client. If I come to know my client is not fulfilling certain compliances, client is a fraudulent type person, will I keep the audit or I'll leave the audit? I'll leave the audit. Many times you would have read the news that certain audit firms have left certain clients on the basis of certain accounting differences or certain risks they find in taking those clients. So this SA 220 mandates how to document. Engagement quality control, again, these are mandatory for listed companies. And for a high risk engagements, same auditor cannot do this EQCR. I need to have a separate senior person in my team who will review, who will validate the work done by audit partner. So this you put document. So SA 220 talks about wherever you have any confusions, you have taken consultations. So it may happen auditor, audit director has some different view, audit client has a different view, how to reconcile. So you take consultations. SA 240, then responsibility relating to fraud. So I need to document that how do I understand the entity's environment and risk of material misstatement. And did I inquire with the management what perceivers of fraud they think? I need to understand from management if there is a fraud happens, whom do they report, and did anybody report it earlier? Because if I don't ask it, they will not tell me. Then SA 250, I need to do documentation, consideration of laws in audit and financial statement, that what all laws a company need to follow. So I need to ask from them. SA 260, communication with those charged with governance. It is very, very important for listed companies and normal boards. Whenever I'm doing an audit, I need to inform the shareholders and the management and the board what I'm expecting. Any deficiency in internal control to those charged with governance and management. So if I'm auditing something, I need to tell them that, okay, you have a maker checker issue, you have a control metrics issue. So whatever issue I have as per SA 260, I need to mention them. Now this is very important, SA 300 planning and audit. So whenever I'm auditing any financial statement, I need to prepare an overall audit strategy, audit plan. Say for example, uh, I am auditing bank. So next week onwards, we all will be busy in bank audits. So in a bank, if I need to check loans and advance or deposits interest or salary expense, according to you, which one would be the least in my audit strategy? So salary would be the least. In a bank, the most important thing would be loans and advances and their interest income on that, and deposits and current account and the saving account and the expense on that. These would be my priority to look into. NPA provisioning. Salary may not be my bigger audit plan. So I need to do a planning where I need to put specific more time. Then this need to be documented and explained to my team. Then what is the risk of material misstatement? SA 315, I need to document according to find out what is my materiality and what risk of material misstatement I have, that I need to make understanding. Then we have SA 320, materiality in planning and performing an audit. What is the overall materiality, and all this need to be documented. Performance materiality. SA 330, audit response to assess risk. What are the risks and how are responses to overall risk. Evaluation of misstatement identified. Now, all these standards, if I document thoroughly, then entire audit will be done properly. Because if there are certain misstatements, so I need to document those misstatements and add them and say, okay, these are below materiality, then I can ignore that. SA 540 estimates, it is very, very important for bigger companies to ensure all these estimates that needs to be taken care of. Related party, again, very, very important for all listed companies and bigger HNA clients, that have you identified related party yourself or ask the management or check how they identify. Going concern, very, very important for auditor's conclusion, how he arrived at auditor's conclusion, that all use of work of another auditor, use of work of internal auditors, all these, how you communicate in the audit report, all these factors are so relevant for audit documentation. So this we need to keep in mind, that once I'm doing audit documentation, all these factors, all these respective standards on auditing put a responsibility on me. Now coming to the question of what happens if I don't do the documentation and I miss the documentation. So again, the answer is very obvious. If I do not do what is supposed to be done, then what will happen? Then what will happen if I don't do what is supposed to be done? Just a second. Let me take you certain disciplinary cases.
Sumit ji, we have received one query that while examining fraud kind of cases, auditor will document certain matters at the time of reviewing the matter, and later management might improve or change that fraudulent activity. How will this documentation work on this aspect, sir?
Okay. So now you need to always keep a evidence that from where you documented it, how you documented it. I'll give an example of, let's say you find certain error. Let's say if you find certain error in the financials, and you tell this to the management, and the management did do a backdated entry, then will your error remain same? No, that would have gone by now. So many places, the management, if I tell to the management and management changes and say, no, no, this is not a fraud. And if you think you believe it's a real fraud, then you need to discuss with your first audit partner. And then the audit partner will discuss this point with the board as an audit. So I'm sure when your partners will be teaching on audit, suppose I'm an audit intern and or audit manager, I find something which I believe is actually a fraudulent activity. Now, what do you think I should do? Shall I just go and ask the CFO or the ask the CFO or the director of that company that, sir, I observed this, please explain. Remember, you are either an audit intern or audit assistant. Shall you go and discuss with them? Answer would be no. The moment you use the term fraud, it has a huge ramification, significant development on the audit itself. So you collect the evidences smartly, and then you go to your partner and or the senior manager in your firm who's audit manager of this project, and discuss with him. Then he will see the impact of the case. He will see the magnitude of the case, and then he will either discuss with the partner to take it to the board immediately, or he will go to the MD of the company and try to ask it that, we observed this, please let me know your views on this. So whenever something is told to the partner, then it cannot be just changed by the management and say, no, we change it. And if it is happening, then auditor can always raise a question. Because when something like fraud comes, it becomes a huge responsibility of the auditor to handle it. Because if you have not handled it properly, it can always backfire on the auditor that you have not done something right, even after there's evidence of it. And especially in terms of bank loans. Whenever there is a bank loan happen and you do not respond, it becomes a huge issue in bank loans. Okay. Now, certain quick questions on what happens in a SA 230 major issues. If I have no, if I do not have a proper working paper and this is not maintained properly, then there's always a issue and there's always a disciplinary committee issue. So again, I say, and across the globe, the objective is if it is not documented, assume not done. And this is, I'm genuinely saying, even if you have actually done the work, but there is nowhere documented in written, oral, nobody believes. So we say this, and my partner used to say this, jungle mein mor nacha kisne dekha? Bole, if you don't put in paper, I will never believe it. And he says, I fully trust on you that you would have done this, but if it is not mentioned, not mentioned. Now, in one of the cases, evidence of timely documentation is not mentioned. If you have an habit of completing entire work in the end and just making all work papers at the same time, does not help you. So if you have not signed up, if you have not put dated when date it is done, then it does not work out. Because if you do not have a process of justifying when it is signed, now in physical, I can always say I signed 1 month back. But today, when there is a digital documents maintained, there will be always a digital document. There will be always there will be a in a digital documentation. There is always a timestamp when it was actually prepared. So that has to be ensured that it is done timely. Especially of EQCR, engagement quality control review, this becomes very, very critical for listed company clients or high risk clients. In a high risk clients or listed company clients, it has to be peer reviewed by someone else in the firm. Because auditor, if I'm an auditor and I'm auditing, let's say a company, Infosys, TCS, Wipro, or any company, and I made certain assumptions. Now, based on my biasness, I can carry those assumptions. But then I want an independent EQCR to review those assumptions and validate it is the right or wrong assumption. Again, as I mentioned, even if you have reviewed, but absence of documentation not happened, then it becomes a non-compliance. Now, if your audit records are not properly retained, it is considered as a serious issue. And whenever and remember where this, so minimum 7 years retention, we all understand. Remember where this it happens. Say, for example, you're auditing a company and company has taken a loan from a bank. And later on, the bank has noted the loan has become NPA and all the sales were fraud. It is a fraudulent company, sham run by the promoters. Now, can we directly blame the auditor that he was also a part of the fraud? Answer would be no. But tomorrow, if the bank asks the auditor, okay, tell me how did you audit? And he says, no, no, I have no working paper. I don't know how it was done. I used to go to the client side and did. I have no document with me. Then it will look like that you are trying to help the borrower. You have not documented anything. So as an auditor, wherever there is a bank loan, bank risk, one should always have proper documentation. I have seen cases of with my knowns, with my colleagues, where the fraud happens, the regulators are very strict with them. Even though the fraud is fully done by the client, and because I'm, since you all are coming in the profession, I'm telling you, if I'm signing something as a audit opinion, as a return, client, the regulator will think that you are not trying to support us because regulator will, if I say to the regulator, no, I don't have a data with me, then how can you say you don't have a data when you are auditing with them? So we need to be very, very clear. Now, I identified the risk, but audit response is not documented. Like, for example, there is one pervasive audit risk always, that override of management controls. And the risk is that whatever controls you put in, let's say you have a control of maker checker, let's say you have a control of any person who enters into the gate need to enter by signing, thumb impression, something you all have. But can it be overridden by the main boss? If I'm actual owner of the company and I will say, no, I'm not going to sign in and out. Can you say, no, 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 sir, you need to follow? So the owner can always override the control that the risk will always have. Now, how you address the risk that needs to be documented. And if it is not documented, something is not right. So that has to be there. So partial documentation is also a defective audit. So you need to have a thorough documentation on what you're saying. Now, common observations noted in various disciplinary cases is no working papers. So this is a very serious violation. See, again, having inadequate working paper and having no working paper are two different things. Having no working paper is a serious criminal crime. It's a serious no option if you have no working papers. If you have inadequate working papers, we can look into the magnitude of inadequacy. But having no working paper leads to suspension in committees. Backdated working paper created after audit not acceptable. As I mentioned, it has to be done simultaneously. It has to be done uh, continuously. The day you are working, similar same day it should be done. As I mentioned, in our office, we used to have a rule that before you leave office, whatever have you done today should be documented on the server. So that tomorrow, if you're not coming for any reason, tomorrow some new guy is coming, he can easily take it from there. So nothing should remain pending in your working brain. It should be documented. If the partner is not willing, is not given a signature, it becomes a huge issue. In incomplete audit trail, risk procedure conclusion, your conclusion is justified only by your work you have done. Files not available when required. So retention is very important. You have to retain mandatory. And in future, I always say your defense in any issue is documentation. And I'll explain in more detailed manner to understand. Now, from last few years, we have a body NFRA, National Financial Regulatory Authority, that oversees certain audit procedures of a listed companies by various audit firms. Now, when NFRA will review any file, they will ensure they review standard A to standard Z. All standards have been documented, followed or not, because their job is to ensure you as a auditor are fulfilling it mandatory. So say for example, if I need to take an audit and I am supposed to send an NOC, and if I have not sent an NOC, it is considered a grave significance misconduct. I cannot give a plea, oh, I did not knew it. It was my first case. I missed to send. Oh, I was too busy. Why should I pay when the client has been paid everything? No, that cannot be your logic. So you need to be very careful on this part. As I mentioned, this 230 is very uh, litigated audit standard in any disciplinary committee matter. The majority things comes from this, that you have not followed this standard thoroughly. And then as an auditor, it is my responsibility to ensure 230 is taken care of in detail. ICA treats documentation not done as professional misconduct and audit failure. And if your working papers are not able to support your decision, if I'm saying company has no misconduct, no material misstatement, so my audit work paper should tell how I am saying this kind of statement. If I could not justify my working papers, so let's say in case of debtors or significant balance sheet items, if I have no comfort, I cannot issue a clean opinion. If there is a balance sheet item and in balance sheet my debtors are contributing 90% of the total balance amount, and on debtors I don't have proper external evidences or or post year end subsequent recovery, subsequent collections, that details is not validated, I cannot give a clean opinion. Just client has said the data is good. That does not happen. So these are few things we need to keep in mind. And one
Yeah.
important thing you need to keep in mind when you do an audit and when you conclude the audit, the best way to conclude the audit would be to do a variance analysis mandatory. So if I'm auditing 2026 audit, I will always plot in the numbers of 2025 last year and do the variance analysis. This variance analysis will serve as a support to you, that you tried to analyze the business compared to last year, and any significant change happened, you have an explanation towards it. And I can tell you based on my experience, I've been auditing in now almost 25 years.
Yeah. So
When I was please, yeah,
one
Karimah, go.
query we have received: can images taken from mobile in case of inventory physical verification be taken as a valid documentation. And one more student is asking, how will the tribunal or RBI in case of bank, ICA, NAFRA gets to know that auditor is acting in collusion with management?
Okay. So two very important questions. First, the pictures. Okay. So pictures can be a very good source provided if in that picture you have the option of taking latitude, longitude, or location, if you can capture the location. You know, in certain cameras you have a feature where I can take a picture, and in that picture it will also show me that what is the location I have taken. If that is coming, then it becomes a strong evidence that yes, inventory verification was done. And especially this will always be helping you a lot. I'll tell you where it will help you. One of you asked this question, a very valid question you asked. So say for example, a bank appointed you as a stock auditor, that you need to go to a certain borrower, check its stocks. So you went there and you see a godown full of stocks. Okay. Now, what you should do is, one, you will do stock count, one, you do analysis stock count. Second, you should take picture of that godown, that these stocks are there. Now you will put the image, that date and location. So that shows that you were there present that day. You see this stock in front of you and picture was there. Next day, how do you come to know that the promoter who has put the stock there, it would be a rented stock? Can it happen? I can tell my fellow neighbor shop that please give certain. Suppose there are two brothers in the same business. Brother A is having a same business of televisions, and B is also having same business of television in same brand, different shops. Can I tell my brother B, please help me here? I don't have stock with me, and auditor is coming, so let me put in my go down. And we have seen the cases happen like this. I have seen particularly these cases. So brothers supported other brother, put all the stock. We've taken the pictures and everything was there. And 3 months later, we came to know when the bank officer went there unannounced, entire godown was nil, no stock at all. And they started calling us and they complained us, our partner, they that the auditor has not even visited there. They have not even seen any stock. Nothing was there. These pictures actually helped us, and it's a real case we are telling. These pictures with location, latitude, longitude, and that location details helped us and say we their stock was there in front of us. And now if the promoter has siphon away the stocks, you cannot blame us. So that way these pictures always help you, but it should not be fabricated pictures. You know, nowadays I can make a picture of AI, show me I'm sitting in London, and you'll see a big Ben Tower behind me. So that kind of documentation you need to ensure it is correct. Regarding the point of how RBI and NAFRA would think that you are colluding with the auditor, one, let's say there are certain evidences, you got certain, somebody tell you that there is a fraud happened. Let's say one of the employees have mentioned to you that there is a fraud happened and you have not taken care of that fraud, or you did not discuss that fraud. So they will see. Second, let's say, as I give an example, in the balance sheet, so where the fraud happens either in debtors, inventory. Suppose you are showing a lot of inventory in your books, and in inventory, when so the client has either inflated the inventory a lot, or he has made a bogus sales bill. And in the bogus sales bill, he has shown huge inflated debtors. And those data you have not even ascertained. And I'll give you a real example. In certain insolvency bankruptcy cases, when the IP is taken over and there is a lot of data showing in the balance sheet, and when he asks the list of the data from the auditor, they don't have the list. So when he tried to dig out the list from the company's old accountants, the accountants gave a list of certain, let's say 15, 20 companies. And all these 15, 20 companies were shut down in 2012, 2013. I'm talking of 2020. You're auditing a balance sheet in 2020, showing data in the balance sheet. All those data were already liquidated, company shut down in MCA records. Now, 8 years, if the auditor has not even checked the status of those companies, checked the recoverability, then they say, what are you doing? So the first view they will take is you are collided with that. Now, I'm not saying that auditor has collided with that. That's not the prima facie I'm saying. But the regulator will take a view that 8 years you did not perform the procedure of having an independent verification or reviewing the auditor balances last 8 years, debtors are not moving, and either you have not provided a write-off or you have not even qualified. That means you are trying to support the management. So the first question is, you need to prove that you are not guilty. I will charge you as a guilty, prima facie. You need to prove that you are not guilty. So that's why following the audit procedures are mandatory. If I don't getting a balance confirmation independently, and 8 years if the debtor is not paid, do you think in the ninth year the debtor will pay? Certainly no. So I need to at least tell client to provide. And if the client is not willing to do, then what should I do? I'll give audit qualification that based on us, I am not comfortable with debtor balances or certain debtors are outstanding from more than 5 years. Client is not given. Had I done this, I have done my duty to inform the reader that in this audit, certain issues are like this. But if I have not, if I remain silent, so what did they say that we need to be, we need to alert. If I remain silent on certain critical issues, it means I have not done my job properly. And why the regulators appoint me as an auditor to be their eyes and ears. So I need to give them the facts and I need to update them. Okay, that way. Any other questions to have? So I don't know. Have you heard the very various? Have you heard the very old joke in audit documentation? There's a very old joke in audit documentation that why did the chicken cross the road? So there's a once you Google this, you'll find this old joke that why did the chicken cross the? Because I was in Middle East, so we used to have to hear this kind of jokes that why did the chicken cross the road? Because they say because it was written in the last year work paper. It was documented last year that chicken has to cross, so this time also it has to cross. So as I said, do whatever you do to safeguard yourself, you should audit document, and it is non-negotiable. And again, my personal opinion would be whether you want to be in as an audit firm, as an auditor, or as a professional, whether you on any side of the table you work, right documentation will always have a very good stable professional life because you know what is you have committed. So if you have done proper documentation of all your jobs, what you do, nobody can question you anytime. This is all from my side or based on personal experience.
Thank you very much, Sumitji. And dear students, as we come to end of this entire sessions, audit insights, bridging theory with practice, let's take a moment to connect everything we have learned into one complete audit journey, right? We began with preliminary engagement activities, started the first session on 21st of January. We understood that how an audit starts with acceptance, independence, clarity of terms, right? We then move to audit strategy, planning, and audit program, where we learn how to structure and organize the audit effectively through using the plan and audit program and making strategy. After the same, we focused on risk assessment and internal control evaluation, and this helped us to understand and identify where things can go wrong, how control can prevent or detect these errors. And building on that, based on that, we covered audit evidence and substantive testing. In these topics, we actually perform procedures and gathered proof to support our conclusions, right? And we then discuss completion and review and audit report, right? Ensuring that all work is properly checked, finalized, and followed by audit reporting, where the auditor communicate the final opinion. And after all these topics, our last topic was audit documentation. As Sumeji started in the beginning with the term, if it is not documented, it means no audit is being done. Jungle mein more nacha kisne dekha. So audit documentation is very, very important. And we want you to look at audit documentation not as a burden, right? It is not a burden, but it is your strongest support in practice. It is the evidence of your effort, your judgment, your professional responsibility, your procedure, where you by which you can show that yes, we have done all due diligence, we have applied all the procedures. And in real audit also, when you go for audit, you may forget discussion, procedures, over the time, but your documentation will always speak for you. So always remember that good auditors are not just those who perform the procedures well, but they have to document their work with clarity, right? Taking care of all the regulations and everything in compliance. And court even also rely on what is documented, what are documentary evidence we are having, not on what is intended or remembered, because we need to have documentation to prove. We need to have. So going forward, develop the habit of writing working papers that are structured, precise, and easy to understand. Same, just like you're studying. When you study any of the concept, what you are doing, you are preparing your own notes. You are preparing flow charts, right? Where you are lacking, you are practicing questions. These are your documentation. And for examination also, as generally I tell you that your documentation should be ready, that before examination, if you are having 2 days time or 1 day's time for revision, your working should be enough, your documentation should be enough, that you are not searching that which question I have to do before exam. The questions where major provisions are covered, the questions in which you find difficulty, right? So, or the questions which are repeatedly asked, it should be documented in one of the diaries, so that before exam you should be knowing that yes, this modules, this particular question, this RTP or this mock test paper or any other source, yes, we have to do it. And that is your audit documentation. So if you build this discipline in your CA journey, it will not only help you in exam, but also set you apart in professional practice. So let this be your takeaway. Your audit opinion is only as strong as the documentation behind it. So dear students, practically an audit is continuous flow of, you have to start, plan, assess risk, gather evidence, testing, review, report, and documentation. So if you understand this flow, you are understanding the procedural part. So as you step into your professional journey, remember each topic you learned is not separate. They are all interconnected part of auditing process. So mastering this flow along with strong documentation will make you confident and competent, right? So this program was initiated looking at your practical difficulties, that you are not having practical experience, right? And bridging theory and with practical gap, we initiated this audit insights initiative. Okay, and we definitely want your feedback, that what kind of improvements you suggest in the same. So your feedback is very, very crucial and very important. The topics where you feel that more practical based should be inserted, the topic where you feel the time was lesser or it should be increased. So your feedback is very, very important. So please do share your feedback, right? And we thank you, Sumit sir, for nicely taking this session on audit documentation, technical support team, and BOS team, and all the students who has participated in the session. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the opportunity and best of luck to all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumit ji. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.